I'm very excited for you.
Minister meetings from the comfort of French Polynesia. Drinking a nice little tea journey.
What time of day would that be?
It would be really late. La Dakomati Hometeo, call this meeting to order on February 3rd, 2025. Councilmember Mickey, may you please read the land acknowledgement?
Thank you, Mayor. The City of Albany recognizes that we occupy the land originally protected by the Confederated Villages of Lishan. We acknowledge the genocide that took place on these lands and must make strides to repay the moral debt that is owed to this indigenous people, specifically the Ohlone tribe. We thank them for the contributions which have transformed our community and will continue to bring forth growth and unity. The City of Albany commits to sustaining ongoing relationships with the tribe and together build a better future for all that now make this their home.
Thank you, Councilmember Mickey. City Clerk, may you please take roll?
Councilmember Hanson Romero.
Here.
Councilmember Jordan.
Here.
Councilmember Mickey.
Here.
Vice Mayor McQuaid.
Here.
And Mayor Lopez.
Here. There was no closed session, so there's nothing to report. We are moving on to ceremonial matters, in which we will have a proclamation in honor of Black History Month read by Vice Mayor McQuaid. And at this time, Mr. C, you are more than welcome to step up to the podium beside Vice Mayor McQuaid. And yes, please encourage the students to come up as well.
Thank you both for being here. We really appreciate it. City of Albany Proclamation in recognition of Black History Month, February 2025. Whereas Black History Month in February celebrates the achievements and contributions that African Americans have made and the central role of African Americans in U.S. history, and whereas historian and author G. Carter Woodson founded the Association for the Study of Negro Life and History in 1915 and initiated the first Negro History Week in February 1926, the particular week selected for the inclusion of the birthdays of Abraham Lincoln and Frederick Douglass, two key figures in the history of African Americans. And whereas in 1986, Congress passed Public Law 99-244, officially designating February as National Black Afro-American History Month. And whereas President Ronald Reagan declared in 1986, the American experience and character can never be fully grasped until the knowledge of Black history assumes its rightful place in our schools and our scholarship. And whereas during Black History Month, we remember and reflect on the struggles faced by African Americans to be treated equally throughout history. And whereas Black History Month promotes, researches, preserves, interprets, and disseminates information about Black life, history, and culture to the global community. And whereas Black History Month also recognizes the important, though often untold, roles and achievements African Americans have played globally in the history, identity, culture, economy, literature, sports, and politics. And whereas the observance of Black History Month calls our attention to the continued need to battle racism and to build a society that lives up to its democratic ideals. And whereas Black History Month reminds us that African Americans' struggle for equal opportunity and against discrimination began hundreds of years ago and have not yet ended. And whereas the selected theme for the 2025 African Americans and Labor focuses on the various and profound ways that work and working of all kinds, free and unfree, skilled and unskilled, vocational and voluntary, intersect with the collective experiences of Black people. Now therefore be it proclaimed that the Albany City Council does hereby recognize February 2025 as Black History Month in the city of Albany and acknowledges the contributions of African Americans in our community and recognizes that Albany's journey to a fully inclusive city and society is not over, but rather requires continued attention and support. Signed, Robin Lopez, Mayor. And now I'd like to introduce Will Kaysen, a mental health specialist for the Albany Unified School District, and his two guests.
On this magnificent Monday, I just want to thank the City Council and also Vice Mayor and Mayor. We thank you for recognizing and honoring African American History, Black History Month, and our BSU President and also our Vice Presidents here. I'll turn it over to them to say a few words, but it's with our heart of gratitude we want to express our thankfulness that you recognize our BSU, our high school, and also Black History Month. So thank you for your commitment to celebrating and embracing Black History Month.
Hi, I'm Olivia Williams and I'm president of BSU.
I'm Madeline Bryan, and I'm vice president of BSU.
We both joined BSU as freshmen our first year because our teacher was like Mr. Kaysen. She was the supervisor of our BSU, and so we joined right away, and we were able to find like a connection, and we're able to like gather our feet at a new school coming in after COVID, and I feel like that was really helpful for us. And then both of us started stepping into more of a leadership role our junior year. I was the event coordinator and she was the media coordinator. And then now we're both have more role, like a more prominent role. And we were able to go to on a field trip this year to the
Black History Museum in
Oakland College.
Yeah.
In Oakland.
Mm-hmm.
We were able to go there, and it was just a really good experience because we were able to learn new history about Oakland, like Black history in Oakland that we probably wouldn't have known if we went to the museum. And so being able to do that, having a safe space for Black students in Albany and also other students, because BSU is not just for Black students at Albany, it's for everyone, and it's a safe space for everyone.
Yes. Yeah. When we started off, we're just kind of like at the beginning, we were kind of working our way up, but it was a great start of the community that we had found and kind of moving up. And now that we're seniors, the first meeting of this year, we had, I think, 60 students in our club that showed up, and it was just like a really great turnout, and it's just kind of really great to see the impact that the community can have on the mindset of our students in our school, and the effect that this community has, and the effect of even things like this, the recognition and the proclamation is just uplifting, and it's really nice to know that there's support, and that within your community it's there's support. That's where.
We're also, on February 13th, we have our Black History Month celebration in the Little Theater from 6 to 8, and everyone is more than welcome to come. Our hip-hop crew is going to be performing, and Vocal Soul is going to be performing from the high school, which is going to be really fun, and they're all very talented students at our school, so you guys should definitely come. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any public comments, City Clerk?
No.
Any comments from council?
I would just like to thank the students for taking the time to be leaders in the club. I know it's a commitment, so it takes an active decision to do that. And to the faculty liaison for taking your time to fill that role, because I know it is outside of your professional duties in terms of your regular business hours. So thank you for doing that, and thank you for bringing your enrichment to Albany. And did you say that the event at the high school is on the 13th of February? Okay, thank you. I just want to make sure I get it on the calendar. All right, take care.
Thank you. Yeah, and we'll make sure we get information from Mr. C as well and make sure we disseminate that. I just want to express my gratitude and appreciation for you students for coming here. I mean, I think it's reaffirming for us on council to hear from you that you feel appreciated, you feel seen, and you feel acknowledged for something as simple as this. And hopefully it's a challenge to all of us to do better and continue to find ways to do better. And Mr. Kaysen, who, it's weird for me saying Mr. Kaysen, my daughter always comes home and says, Mr. C. I just want to acknowledge everything you do for your students and for the students in BSU, but also across campuses, multiple campuses. I think that definitely speaks to some of the work that maybe doesn't get as much visibility as it should from that Black folks do in this country. And I want to make sure that I state it publicly that we appreciate you and we see you. And when I'm able to have my daughter come home, even if she's had a rough day, knowing that she tapped in with you for like 15 minutes, like I'm just blown away. Like 15 minutes does wonders. I don't know what it is, but she may leave having a rough day and she comes home high-spirited after talking with you. And I think we need more of that. And we need more young folks to see what it is, what men of color, what folks of color can truly actualize into. And so hopefully it's also just a reminder that we don't just celebrate Black history for 1 month, that it's to be celebrated every day, because there are people who live in Black skin that do celebrate it and experience Blackness every day through and through. And so I want to make sure that that's also acknowledged as well. So thank you very much again for being here, all of you. Any other comments from council? All good. Thank you again. We'll now move on to city manager's report. City manager.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to focus a bit on sanctuary city information. I know this has been paramount and of concern to a number of members of our community. And first, like to recognize our mayor and council for your ongoing leadership during these challenging times. I know we're all reacting to a flurry of federal government orders, trying to understand what they mean and how they impact our community. So we have taken the initiative to reaffirm our commitment since 2017 as a sanctuary city. You'll recall the images that we had in 2017. We're refreshing those, making sure they're high priority on our website, also at our city facilities. And we will continue to do more of this outreach, both visually and in person at all of our city facilities, so our community understands what a sanctuary city means and the associated policies that go along with that. With regard to specifically immigration enforcement, I want to reiterate that the City of Albany, per this policy, will not help with any immigration enforcement within our city. Proactively, we have some information. You'll actually see it in our lobby here and at all public counters and city facilities with a public space, a small red card that has some information and resources with regard to support for those with concern in this area. And again, more information to come on this. But per our police department, I want to express specifically they are prohibited from contacting, detaining, or arresting someone based solely on suspicion that an individual is undocumented. Targeting non-criminals jeopardizes our ability to protect our community. And if you do check out our website, as you see on the visual, it is a video. It's a nice little clip just reminding people of our local community and our local community values. Along with the flurry of changes going on at the federal level, there are potentially a number of city projects that are being impacted due to federal funding. We don't have exact details on this yet because things seem to change hour by hour, but we are continuing to monitor this. I want to underscore that it is obviously a priority for us to understand, and with this uncertainty, there may be some changes in project timelines. More to come, of course, as information is more clear at many levels of government. Switching gears, focusing on local city and what we have done to serve our community. Hopefully in the mail you will have either received or be receiving very soon a postcard that provides a outreach information regarding 2024 accomplishments of the City of Albany. This is your departments serving your local community. It's a brief recap of some of the major initiatives undertaken and the accomplishments of the past year, something we're very proud of, and appreciation to the council for your leadership in helping us realize those goals. As part of that information, we also have a opportunity to provide feedback on a community satisfaction survey. Thus far, we've had about 250 responses, which is encouraging. Not necessarily a scientific survey, but a way to get a pulse of community priorities for those so willing to provide that information. So my appreciation to those that have turned it in. We'll continue to collect information and shape that information as we move forward. A few upcoming events to note with regard to community service. We have a free tax preparation service provided by the Senior Center. It's starting this Thursday, February 6th through April 10th. Appointments are required. You can call our Senior Center or stop by to make an appointment. We will also hold a paratransit information session on Friday, February 14th at 1:30 at the Senior Center. This is a service available to both seniors and people with disabilities to help community members with transportation needs. And finally, please join us, save the date, for our annual Senior Center Pancake Breakfast on Saturday, February 9th from 9 to 12. The Friends of Albany Seniors host this annually with skilled chefs from our Albany Fire Department. So appreciation to them for helping with this event. Tickets are available at the Senior Center. And that completes my report. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, City Manager. City Clerk, do we have any comments? Any questions from council?
I have one. It's not really a question, but I was thinking about the paratransit workshop and how we've been looking for someone to represent Albany on the board. You're nodding your head like, yeah, we know. You'll have somebody, maybe some information there, somebody, yeah, okay. Thank you.
Thank you again, City Manager. Now moving on to item 6, Good of City. This is for attendee to provide council comments, information, questions that are not on the agenda. At this time, if you're online, feel free to raise your hand now, or if you're on phone, pressing *9. City Clerk, do we have any comments in person, and how many do we have online?
We have 3 in person and 2 hands online so far.
Okay. We'll provide 3 minutes for each comment.
Good evening. I'm Dr. Stephen Alpert. I am here yet again asking why the city follows only the minimum state mandate, notifying those within 300 feet of proposed new construction, regardless of project size, when in fact for years other California municipalities have varied notification distances for different sized projects. Alerting only those within 300 feet is inappropriate for large multi-story projects which will impact all of Albany. Such was the case for the oversized 5-story mixed commercial residential structure proposed for 1600 Solano Avenue, which if built would drastically alter the small-scale tree-lined character of Solano. Only 73 properties were alerted by postcards mailed 10 days before the first Planning and Zoning Commission hearing. My wife and I have thoroughly documented how 3 city officials initially were unresponsive and subsequently either outright lied or engaged in obfuscation as to why the city could not expand notification beyond the minimum state mandate. Since 2014, the city of Beverly Hills has used varied notification for small versus large projects. Albany city officials have been provided with the emails I exchanged with Michael Forbes, currently Director of Community Development for Beverly Hills, with over 25 years' experience as a city planner. Director Forbes wrote, quote, "It is not uncommon for cities to have different noticing requirements depending on the type or size of project." He further confirmed that notification may differ within the same zoning district. Moreover, he definitively refuted assertions made by Councilman Jordan and the city attorney that enacting varied notification would create legal exposure. City officials were provided with hard copies of Beverly Hills Municipal Code 103250, which details the city's use of varied notification. During the last meeting, a commentator personally admonished me and my group for wasting everyone's time, apparently exposing the manner in which select city officials sought to avoid addressing 300 feet amounts to harassment. One of my group mentioned that alerts for large projects did in fact concern Albany residents. Indeed, during the single council meeting devoted to 1600 Solano, 43 individuals expressed legitimate concerns about the project, with only 3 in support, and Vice Mayor Tiedemann noted, quote, "the intensity of feelings expressed in forwarded emails." Despite overwhelming opposition and multiple calls for continuance, including one from current Vice Mayor McQuaid, then Mayor Jordan called for immediate approval of the project as submitted. Notifying only those within 300 feet clearly limits public discourse, allowing the Planning and Zoning Commission to propose and the council to push through new projects with minimal public input. I'm again requesting that the council justify why Albany follows only the minimum state mandate. This issue should be a formal agenda item to allow for extended in-depth public discussion.
Thank you for your
My wife
comment.
will continue the presentation.
Good evening. I am Dr. Celeste Marks, and I will review various comments made by city officials during the single meeting addressing 1600 Solano, which was held as a Zoom session on June 1st, 2022. The city attorney repeatedly asserted that if the council failed to approve the project as submitted, the applicant could file a lawsuit, which the city would assuredly lose. The video of that meeting shows Vice Mayor Tiedemann offering that in his experience approaching the applicant to discuss suggested mitigations would not be useful. Councilman Jordan has written he felt compelled to vote in favor of the project in fear of a lawsuit. Perhaps a lawsuit might have occurred, but we'll never know because the council did not approach the applicant to consider any of the suggested mitigations. Note that council members Mickey, Hanson, Romero, and Lopez were not on the council in 2022. As mentioned, current Vice Mayor McQuaid called for continued discussion, stating, "I do have hopes that we can continue to work on this project to make it more appropriate for this location. And this project is really disappointing that Albany really isn't getting a lot from it, despite the project receiving significant waivers and concessions to the benefit of the developer and the property owner. The project should support Albany's general plan, apparently recognizing that as submitted, the project violated Albany's planning and zoning mission statement, which reads, the purpose of design review is to ensure that designs of projects are functionally appropriate to their site conditions and harmonious with their surroundings. The submitted plan for 1600 Solano is clearly not harmonious with the adjacent Craftsman era buildings." Thank you for the opportunity to address the council.
Thank you for your comment.
Hi, Dawn Kawamoto, Albany resident. Mayor Lopez, I enjoyed your January message, and I firmly believe in it. As your mayor, I want to reaffirm our unequivocal commitment to community. I stand firm in my promise to ensure our most vulnerable community members are not simply recognized, but entirely protected. I would like to ask all of you, Mayor Lopez and the council, to consider this and take it to heart. Be inclusive of people who live beyond the 300 feet limit for the project at 1600 Solano. Why go for the minimum for feedback? Go for the maximum for feedback. Be inclusive. Reach out to everybody who feels they may be impacted. Just don't go for the minimum. Go for the maximum. And that's all I ask.
Thank you for your comment.
Good evening. This is Lucinda Young. I'm an Albany resident, and I'm also a member of the Albany Climate Action Coalition. I first want to just thank the council for reasserting the Sanctuary City resolution, and also for navigating all the chaos that has been being created right now by our federal government. As I mentioned, I'm a member of the Albany Climate Action Coalition, and the coalition held a very successful public workshop on home electrification at the Albany Library last Sunday. We want to extend thanks to committee member Hanson Romero, who suggested that we do this workshop, and also for attending the presentation to promote the switch from gas to electric in order to advance our climate action adaptation plan. The coalition will be hosting several other workshops on sustainability topics at the library later this year, which we'll announce here. I would like to ask the council to consider joining the bipartisan network Climate Mayors. This network includes over 350 mayors, which represent 46 states, who show climate leadership through actions in their communities. And I see that mayors of our neighbor cities, Oakland, Berkeley, Richmond, and several others have joined, and I'd like to see our mayor join as well. This group recently issued a statement that they're not backing down from their commitment to the Paris Agreement. And I'm glad to see that a similar resolution is on our consent calendar tonight. One concern I have that I expressed about 6 months ago, and I wanted to bring it up again, is concern about the lack of EV chargers, public EV chargers in our city, and the failure to implement the city council's previous authorization to install 5 EV chargers in 2021. Half of our greenhouse gas pollution, as you probably know, is due to transportation, mostly private cars. So this is a really important part of our climate action and adaptation plan. We have a lot of residents who live in apartment buildings, and access to public EV charging is essential before they'll even consider an EV. And I have a friend who lives in an apartment. She went ahead and bought an EV because she's very committed to doing her part on climate. And I have listened to all her difficulties in finding available public charging. And it's gotten to the point that I'm actually letting her come to my house and charge because it's so hard for her to find an available public charger. So I think this is a problem that I would like to see addressed. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comment.
Hi, good evening, Honorable Council. I've listened to a lot of Albany City Council meetings over the years. So I know that the Honorable Councilperson Peggy McQuaid and Councilperson Preston Jordan have expressed an interest in having a code enforcement person on the payroll in Albany. Even though this did not get funded through Measure R, it has been accomplished by other means. Through the cancellation of insurance policies for multi-unit housing in Albany. Now, each insurance carrier who is even considering offering us coverage is asking for a multitude of inspections. I had to pay for an electrical inspection, a plumbing inspection, a wall heating inspection, and servicing. I've always serviced my wall heaters every year, but now I needed an inspection as well. I needed a roof inspection, an earthquake retrofit inspection, and of course, we will all be having an inspection for SB 326. That's elevated balconies, decks, and stairs. So I just want you to know that we are all being scrutinized, our feet are being held to the fire. We have, in addition to all that I mentioned, all of the inspections that I had to provide the insurance company, they will also be sending out their own inspector. So they're not trusting any of those inspections. They will have their own individual double checking everything. So I hope that gives the Honorable Preston Jordan and Honorable Peggy McQuaid some comfort that in fact multi-unit housing is being adequately surveyed and kept up to proper standards for habitation. On a different note, I wanted to just mention on a personal level that I do actually agree with Dr. Alpert and his wife that I think having a wider area of surveillance is a good policy. I like to know what's going on in my neighborhood. I think others do as well. And I do think it's a good idea to have structures that are suitable and appear to be hospitable for residential neighborhoods and not to be huge monstrosities that are overtaking our small, quaint city streets. So I thank you for considering this.
Thank you for your comment. Thank you. Any comments or responses from city staff?
Sure, Mayor. With regard to EV chargers, we understand the concern. We too are working to facilitate how to implement what is a rather complicated project at some of our city facilities, at least. In terms of other space throughout the city, we are planning on initiating a feasibility study to better understand that moving forward. We have a lot of other priorities as well in our Public Works Department with regard to capital improvements. I think that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, City Manager.
We are, I believe, a member of Climate Mayors, or at least we were in the past.
Thank you for the clarification. Moving on to item number 7, consent calendar. Items on the consent calendar are considered to be routine by City Council and will be enacted by one motion. By approval of the consent calendars, and staff recommendations will be adopted unless otherwise modified by City Council. There will be no separate discussion on these items unless a council member or member of the audience requests removal of the item from the consent calendar. Do any of the council members wish to pull an item from the consent calendar? Do any members of the public wish to pull an item from the consent calendar?
I'll move consent.
I will second.
City Clerk?
Councilmember Jordan,
Yes.
Councilmember Mickey,
Yes.
Vice Mayor McQuaid,
Yes.
Mayor Lopez,
Yep.
and Councilmember Hanson Romero.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you very much. Look at us breeze right through this. We're hopping on to item number 10. Ratification of advisory board appointment to the Housing Advisory Commission. Do we have any statement from city staff?
Good evening, Council. This is a carryover item from your last meeting on January 21st to consider ratification for appointment to one of the remaining vacant seat on Housing Advisory Commission. Since last meeting, staff posted additional call for applicants and encourage rental providers to apply. 2 applicants have been nominated for the seat: Peter Moss, recommended by Vice Mayor McQuaid, and Daniel Marcus Winkler, recommended by Councilmember Hanson Romero. And also an additional note that's related, Council also took action to modify the membership composition language in resolution number 2024-13 that established the Housing Advisory Commission to the Housing Advisory Commission should include, if possible, 1 tenant, 1 affiliated one affiliate of local educational institution and one rental provider. With that, I'll be happy to answer questions.
Thank you. Do we have any questions from council?
Is Peter Moss a property provider in Albany?
No, but he was on the last council agenda as a nominee.
In his application, he mentioned that he was a previous landlord, so he's not a current landlord, but he does have experience being a landlord.
Thank you. Any other questions from council? Seeing no questions, moving on to public comments.
I have Don Kawamoto and Mike Sosaji.
Hi, Don Kawamoto, Albany resident. I would like to endorse Daniel Winkler, given he is in the real estate business. He is also a current landlord, so he has an even greater interest of staying abreast of what is the current, happenings within the real estate and rental market. So that is something to really consider as someone who's actually got some skin in the game. So, thank you.
Thank you for your comment.
Mike?
Thank you very much. I'm Mike Zoraji. I'm resident in Albany for 20 years. Thank you for allowing me to speak here. A few years ago, the Chamber established a Housing Advisory Commission. I was here actually watching it live. During the debate, it was proposed that to have fairness and balance, there should be a representation from a housing provider, someone who provides housing to people here. The moment that happened, Aaron Tiedemann, who's familiar with a lot of people here, acted very swiftly to dilute the representation of the housing providers and expanded the commission from what was originally 2 or 3, made it 5, essentially minimizing the voice of the housing providers. Just want to be clear, housing providers in the city of Albany supply half the housing in the city, yet they are granted only 1 seat at the table of 5. Repeat again, housing providers who contribute to half of the Albany's housing stock have just 1 seat at the table. The commission was deliberately structured to be one-sided, limited the input of the housing providers. The voter of Albany at the last election sent a clear message, overwhelmingly rejected Aaron Tiedemann, his re-election. This is a strong repudiation of his extreme and unbalanced policies. Preston Jordan ensured that Aaron Tiedemann retains influence by placing him on the Housing Advisory Commission. This appointment allows him to continue promoting the very same one-sided policies that voters rejected, policies that lack fairness, balance, and long-term viability. Furthermore, this move enables certain council members to push an extreme agenda while shielding themselves behind commission recommendations, creating an illusion of consensus when in reality the deck has already been stacked from the start. Reinstating Aaron Tiedemann in this capacity is a direct affront to the will of the voters. It undermines public trust and ensures that the housing policy remains unbalanced and ineffective. We'll be watching very closely the council as well as the commission to ensure that housing policies are fair, effective, and sustainable. Albany residents deserve policies that work in the long run, not those that serve political interests at the expense of real solutions. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment.
Good evening, Peter Campbell, Albany resident and rental provider. I want to speak on behalf of Mr. Winkler for the position on the commission. I think it's critical because of the viewpoints of at least 2, I don't know all of the all of the members of the commission, but at least two of the commissions have very strong opinions, very strong positions on tenant rights. And that's fine. We need to have, tenants have rights, but we need to remember that property owners have rights as well. And Mr. Winkler is an Albany property provider, Albany rental provider. He works in Albany. He's got his fingertips on what's going on in the community. He's in a position to know a lot about what housing issues there are. And I just hope that you will consider that he is probably the most qualified person to be on that commission of the two candidates that have submitted applications. I'm sure Peter Moss would be as fair as he could be, but he's not a property owner or not a rental provider in Albany at the present time. He's not necessarily up to date on what's going on in terms of property issues in Albany because he doesn't own property or he doesn't rent property in Albany. So I urge you to give strong preference to Mr. Winkler when you're making your decision this evening. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment.
Francesco Papalia, Albany resident. I want you to know that we would be extraordinarily lucky to have Daniel Winkler on the Housing Advisory Committee. I've worked with him for almost 20 years. And he has on his fingertips statistics and knowledge and numbers about the costs, the change in values, the change in value in the cost of providing housing, of insuring housing, of renovating housing, of that I learn every time I talk with him. And so I want you to, and I also want to tell you that I was very disappointed that Peter Moss was not appointed last session, because Peter has a very good breadth of information and experience, and I mean breadth of, besides being on the council for 8 years and the planning for 8 years, I think at least 8 years. But he is not, and he would have been an excellent choice at the at-large position. Excellent. Because he also understands what the difficulties are in being a housing provider and the good news about it, because I think he continues to invest in housing, and so does Daniel. So they understand why people are motivated to do that, which is also important, because if you don't understand what motivates people to become housing providers, you don't know how to provide the proper incentives to get them to produce new housing and keep their housing in the best condition. Because if you're, and that's what we will gain from having someone like Daniel as part of the Housing Advisory Committee. So please don't miss out on this opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment.
Hi, good evening. This is Elaine Stelton. I am very concerned about an imbalance that has already occurred on the Housing Advisory Commission. We now have, if I understand correctly, Margie Marks, who is an absolutely lovely human being. She helps with the shower program. I have the highest respect for her. But I have attended, as I mentioned, many, many city council meetings, and she is definitely a tenants' rights activist. And we also have Aaron Tiedemann, who was voted, out, but I understand that he has some experience in housing. but in all the many meetings I have attended, I have never seen the sort of fairness and balance in his judgment that I've seen, for example, in Margie Marks. Margie Marks has a heart. She can see the other side. Aaron is very one-sided, and unfortunately, having those two on council really creates a very unfair setting for housing providers. I don't know what can be done at this point to rectify this horrible situation, other than, that you should be well aware that there is an imbalance. So when information comes to you from the Housing Advisory Commission, I would hope that you would understand that there is already two people with an extremely strong agenda that is not housing provider favorable. So please take that under consideration in making any further appointments. I think Daniel Winkler would be a nice balance to sort of even out the situation at the moment. Thank you very much for considering this challenging situation. Good night.
Thank you for your comment.
Hi there. I've lived in Albany for almost 40 years. I live on Keynes Avenue, so as you know, there are lots of apartments on my street, so my neighbors include homeowners like myself and renters and landlords like my 97-year-old next door neighbor. I know both Peter and Daniel personally, and I really believe that both would be positive additions to this Housing Advisory Commission, but for this final single position that's left, I just think it's really important to represent Albany. You need to have a true current rental provider who understands the ins and outs and the trials and tribulations of paying taxes and paying fees and making improvements and getting permits and all those kinds of things that housing providers and landlords need to do, and working with renters to provide a home and a positive environment. And I think that community member Daniel Winkler really fits that description, and hope you'll appoint him, and thank you for your consideration.
Thank you for your comment.
Hello, good evening, council members. My name is Saya Faraktala. Thank you for allowing me to speak tonight. I address you as a dedicated housing provider and a committed member of our Albany community with a clear focus on fairness and balanced decision-making. I'm here to raise a serious concern regarding the current composition of our Housing Advisory Commission. The original design for this commission was precise: one tenant, one housing provider, one school board affiliate, and two individuals without specific agendas. This structure established, it captured a complete range of perspectives to ensure that all community voices are fairly represented. However, recent appointments have disrupted this balance. For example, Aaron Tiedemann, while a tenant, is also primarily a tenants' right activist. And similarly, Margie Marks, although a homeowner, is actively engaged in tenants' right advocacy. These dual roles compromise the intended impartiality and clarity of the Commission's representation. Council member Jordan has defended these selections by pointing out that 52% of Albany's residents are tenants. Yet, as Francesco Popula had noted, that 52% of our if 52% of our population are tenants, then a significant portion of our housing is managed by providers like myself. Ignoring this fact and favoring tenant representation risks skewing the policy decisions and neglecting the contributions and responsibilities of housing providers. Furthermore, the process behind these appointments is highly concerning. The decision to appoint two housing advocates raises serious questions about fairness and transparency. It suggests personal affiliations might be influencing the Commission's makeup, which in turn undermines public trust in the integrity of our local government. I urge the Council to enforce the original 1-to-1 ratio between tenants and housing providers, and to review any decisions where personal affiliations may have compromised the fairness of this process. I believe in maintaining a balanced commission is essential for creating policies that truly reflect the diverse needs and responsibilities for all stakeholders in our community. Thank you for your attention, and I also wanted to put in there that I support Daniel Winkler as well. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Thank you, City Clerk. Bring it back to council for discussion. Open the floor for.
I am appreciative that two housing providers applied, that we were able to make the timing work. And so I thank you for nominating Mr. Winkler. And I will comment that both Ms. Marks and Mr. Tiedemann were appointed to the council unanimously. So each of the 5 members of this body did vote to appoint them.
I appreciate everyone who provided input tonight. I do, and I hear your concerns and I understand your concerns. I will say that Aaron and I probably butted heads on quite a few things that related to housing. But the one thing that I will say in all of my efforts and works with him is that he does listen to every member of the public, and he does have a wealth of knowledge on how different things that will be asked of this commission to review, the multitude of the ways that it could be implemented. And I think that is a value that he will bring to the HAC that, frankly, I don't know that we have anyone else in the community that could provide. I will say that in what I know of Daniel Winkler and reading his bio and what he wrote and his things, I think he has an incredible history and an incredible knowledge base. However, I am concerned by some of the sentences that he wrote that implied, and I can read verbatim, but that implied that he would be against just about anything that might be a policy decision that the HAC would bring forward. And that is concerning to me, that we need someone on the commission who's going to work through the issues and help bring forward something for us as a policy to review. And so that is I would highlight as a concern. I will acknowledge that I did not have the opportunity to call Mr. Winkler and have a conversation with him. I'm simply going off of what I read in his application.
Thank you.
I think we're in a sort of a unique place right now as we have 2 very, very excellent choices, and that's a good place to be. I do think it's important that we have representation from the housing provider community. I will say, though, that I share Councilmember Mickey's concerns on some of the statements in Mr. Winkler's application. But listening tonight, I feel like we need to move this forward in a positive direction and take a positive step forward. And I think the only way to do that and to be sure that we have a balanced commission is to appoint Mr. Winkler. And, I probably will talk to him going forward and share some thoughts with him. But I think at this point, like I said, we have 2 good choices, but I think in order to at least start out in a harmonious place, we need to do that.
Thank you, Vice Mayor McQuaid. Any comments on this end?
I just wanted yes, I love, what Pete Moss could bring to the table, and I was really honestly pushing for Pete to be appointed as the at-large. However, went along with having Aaron. I know that Aaron's got a lot of information as well, and so that was one of the other reasons that I felt very strongly that somebody who also is as skilled and knowledgeable and, can see the many facets of things should also be part of that commission. And that's why I went to Danny and asked him if he would be willing to do this. So I'm very grateful he has agreed to carve out that time for us to be part of that knowledgeable voice, because he is a strong community member. One of the reasons that I went to go work for Winkler was because he was part of our community. He would pay for the buses for the schools in our community so that they could go on field trips. He's a very reasonable person and always works to try to find the good balance in a solution in any challenge, despite maybe whatever he had written on his application. But also, knowing that he's not just skilled as a housing provider in Albany, but he also provides housing in other cities in California as well as other states. So he has a vast amount of knowledge and skills and information that we could really benefit from. And that was one of the purposes of doing this commission is bringing forth knowledge and more information so that everybody could kind of get on the same page and understand where everybody was coming from. So I would really like to encourage approving Daniel Winkler on this commission. He's not just a property provider in Albany, and as I said, property provider elsewhere. He is actually also a renter currently, so he rents in Richmond. And then, just also being in the business of real estate and working with many people and many different types of renters and property providers around, I believe he's going to bring us a lot of great information. So.
I want to thank you for asking him to apply, and there might have been a little more than just an ask, but thank you for asking him.
I'll say, I think I share very similar comments across here at the dais with fellow council members, that we're in a very incredible situation. We have two very highly qualified, incredible applicant before us. I think we've heard up and down through the public comments what Mr. Winkler brings to the table, and we've heard as well tangentially what Peter Moss can bring to the table. And I think one public comment had even highlighted, Peter's previous tenure on council. Again, both bring very tangible benefits with their respective backgrounds. For instance, an individual like Peter knows how city council functions and knows what some of the work might entail for something from hack to make its way up to city council. However, an individual like Mr. Winkler provides very professional perspective and insight that I know I might get metaphorically slapped around for saying this, but provides something that's a bit refreshing in terms of not just balance, but voice during these public meetings that happen for the Housing Advisory Commission. For me, it's a tough decision to make because, again, both are very well qualified in their own right. However, sometimes I do think there is drawback if you previously served, previously served on city council, that you may assume that things still operate the same way when you're at the dais with a different collective or a different cohort, and it's very different. And which I'm sure Vice Mayor McQuaid's also like adapting to now, like, oh, it's a different cohort. This wasn't what it was, back previously. And so, though I think it's wonderful that Peter Moss has respected background and experience, I think just me personally in this moment, we stand to benefit much more from having someone such as Mr. Winkler at the table. And I know I've heard concern about, the idea of a quote-unquote real estate agent having a seat. And at the end of the day, again, these are public meetings. Everyone's held accountable just like we are for anything that's stated. So like when Councilmember Mickey had mentioned comments that were made or that was stated in the application, for me, I didn't take that too harshly because, again, we are held to account during public meetings, and there are guardrails for a reason for advisory groups and for city council that we, as one individual, don't make decisions. We make them as collective. And so with that said, that's my long and winded way of stating, I think we have a very well-qualified candidate that could be very beneficial. And I would just love to see someone like Mr. Winkler and Aaron go at it during these meetings. Sign me up for the match. Aaron's probably somewhere chuckling about that. But at this moment, it sounds like we are potentially entertaining a motion.
Can I ask a question first? I have a question for Mala. Is there any conflict of interest in the work relationship between Councilmember Hanson Romero and Mr. Winkler?
No, we don't believe there is. Thank you for asking.
And then Mala, just because I have had to recuse myself from so many housing element items, is there a danger that Mr. Winkler will also have to recuse himself from items?
He might, but as I understand it, these commissioners are just going to be making recommendations, so that's pretty helpful. But as things progress, we can always look at that.
Okay. So, I started the comments tonight, and I agree. I mean, they're both incredible candidates, and I might have twisted Pete's arm to run to apply for the HAC last time, specifically because I wanted his experience from council, his experience from planning and zoning. I think at the time I had not known that he had previously been a landlord. But I think those were some of the things that I was hoping the commission would have, a little bit of insight of how council works, how things actually move forward. I think having appointed Aaron, we have that on the council, and we have other resources. I will, again, raise my concern about some of the phrases, some of the statements that Mr. Winkler made, but I will take it on face value, given Jennifer Hanson Romero and some of the members of the public who have worked closely with Mr. Winkler, that he is more open-minded perhaps than the way that he phrased things in his application. And I would also agree with the mayor that sometimes it's good to have some conflict. I'm just nervous when it's conflict that is less about getting to an end and more about slowing things down. So, but with that, I will actually go ahead and make a motion that we appoint Daniel Winkler.
I'll second.
Do we need to make any amendment to that motion to also ratify changing the language per staff recommendation, or should we make it?
No, I think last meeting we made the change from shall to should.
And just to point out, we did that as more of a carry through, like if somebody were to drop off, we could then have the ability to finagle what we needed to going forward.
It would allow the meetings to continue happening as we try to find someone replacing the 3 positions that we would like to maintain. And I will say also part of my reason, just backing up for why when I made the motion, is that it is the clearest tie back to what we originally said 2 years ago, which is a landlord, active landlord in Albany. So that was another reason for my.
And just so you know, Danny has had plenty of experience with plenty of city council meetings, not just us.
All right. We have a motion and a second. City Clerk?
Mayor Lopez?
Yep.
Councilmember Hanson Romero?
Yes.
Councilmember Jordan?
Yes.
Councilmember Mickey?
Yes.
And Vice Mayor McQuaid?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you very much.
I could make a comment, Mayor. The one answer in Mr. Winkler's questionnaire, or his answers to the questionnaire that caught my eye was a question about time expectation, what did the applicant expect in terms of time commitment? And he responded, I'm expecting this to take about an hour to 90 minutes for the meeting. I do not know what is required beyond that. So I would suggest ask Councilmember Hanson Romero. It might be a kindness to him if you sort of explain that there's a time element to looking at the packages that come in. And I don't know, I don't know how long these meetings are expected to be. I think most advisory body meetings are usually scheduled 7 to 9. And then they can be extended, so they're 2 hours. So I just think letting him know. Okay. I just didn't want him to, like, you know, give him a little prequel. And I will also thank commenter Elaine Stelton for updating at least me on the status of what is going on with insurance providers. I've certainly read a bit in the news about this, but hearing it actually from a housing provider in Albany is quite helpful. So thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to item 12, council subcommittee reports. Council members at the time may provide subcommittee reports, and we'll start on this side with Councilmember Mickey.
Sure. Thank you, Mayor. So the League of California Cities had their committee member meetings, and so I attended a housing and economic development meeting. It was really just bringing us up to speed on, probably a good portion of the meeting was actually bringing us up to speed on the number of new legislators that are at the Senate and the Assembly, and brought us up to speed on a few of the bills that are kind of in their second year and starting to move forward. I was very excited that this year's committee meeting focused on the second half of the conversation as well, economic development. I believe last year in what was a little bit of a traumatic set of meetings, it was solely focused on housing elements pretty much the entire time. And one of the great things that was presented was Cal Jobs, and so that is an initiative under Governor Newsom to really carve the state into 14 subregions, and really come up with economic development plans and job plans that are focused on the businesses within those economic regions. So for instance, one example that was brought up in the Merced area, there was a lot of job training that was leading to very high-tech jobs. The problem is there are no high-tech jobs in Merced County or in the sub-region that it exists. And so while those are important training, the idea of finding other career paths and trainings that are good long-term careers and well-paying, but that are focused on the businesses and economic engine that is in that sub-region. And so that was just one example that was brought up. I found that really intriguing. I mean, I think we benefit in being in the Bay Area where there are a multitudes of types of jobs, but I feel too much in the past we focused on just those kinds of jobs, which meant really a brain drain and a economic drain on other communities within California. So that was one of the highlights that I noted.
Vice Mayor McQuaid.
Thank you. It's been a while since we didn't really do this last time, so I've got some sort of random things.
I'll let it out.
I did attend a Red Cross workshop on setting up a shelter, which was for Albany and Berkeley. And it was right in the middle of the LA fire time, so it was a really valuable discussion. I think almost all of us were at the UC Housing Project opening. I attended Congressmember Latifah Simon's community swearing in Oakland. I went to the League of California Cities Mayor and Council Members Academy, and that was followed up by the League Environmental Policy Committee. And again, mostly we talked about fires in LA. I did go to the art opening at the community center. If you haven't seen it yet, be sure to go by. It's two local artists, and it's a fabulous show, as always. The Arts Committee does a wonderful job. And also last Wednesday, the CERT team had a Zoom meeting. And we talked a lot about different things we can do with preparedness in Albany. So that was all good stuff.
Thank you. Councilmember Hanson Romero.
I attended the staff waste board meeting, and we were going through the annual audit for the fiscal year 23-24. And again, it's really incredible, just the incredible work that these people do and how well they, manage everything. We always have a very clean audit. It's really spectacular and impressive. So just kudos to them. But that's basically all I have to report for that meeting. So.
Thank you. Councilmember Jordan.
Yeah, thank you. So the Alameda County Mosquito Abatement District met. I attended my first meeting as representative in that capacity for this period, and was appointed to the Finance Committee, which meets about 4 times a year. I also, outside of that meeting, reinitiated an idea that I had at the end of my prior 2-year term, which was the possibility of modifying catch basins that retain water and therefore have to be treated so that that last bit of water will actually dissipate. And so I appreciate being back on the body, because now I can start that at the beginning of 2 years rather than the end. And staff is meeting and discussing the idea and how to move it forward. And on the Alameda County Transportation Commission, it had a meeting. May or may not know that the executive director is retired from that body, so there's an interim executive director. An HR firm was contracted to do a search, and at the last meeting, the commission appointed an ad hoc recruitment committee, and I'm one of the members. So if you have any advice on being on a recruitment committee, if you've ever had that experience in your professional capacity by any chance, I welcome any and all advice and any and all ideas. Thank you.
Thank you. For me, there was quite a bit that happened. I'm learning this really quickly, being in the mayor's seat, that kind of get pulled in a lot of different directions. I'll start from the bottom up. We did have our police and fire pension fund meeting. We more or less just went through Q1 report. Nothing juicy that really came out of that other than trying to understand trajectories for the year. I did have the honor of attending the swearing-in ceremony for one of our nearby neighbors, Pinole, Mayor Cameron Sasai. He's the youngest and first Filipino mayor in Pinole, so there's a lot of commonality that him and I has shared. We've known each other for quite some time, but it was also a treat because Attorney General Rob Bonta was also there. And I got to bring my daughter, who now everyone jokes and calls her little AOC. She got to meet him and hear some of the words of what some of one of our more higher elected officials in the state have to say, especially in these times. Speaking of little AOC, I supported her and many of her classmates at the Albany High Winter Showcase. I was pretty amazed to see the level of talent that we have in our community and the amount of parents as well that were extremely supportive. That was refreshing for me to see, because that's not something that was typical for me to see when growing up in nearby West Contra Costa. Yes, that was me shooting shots over to West Contra Costa Unified. As well, as alluded by Vice Mayor McQuaid, we attended, several of us had attended the grand opening event of the new student housing here in Albany. We had the honor of both witnessing the chair of the Ohlone tribe and the cultural bearer give remarks and words. It was truly a beautiful event. Also, just encourage folks to consider ways that we can support some of our student neighbors in meaningful ways. As well, I did have a sit-down meeting with Senator Jesse Araguin's staff. I think his staff had reached out to many of us on council. But I do want to note that in that conversation, not just here at the local level, but at the state level, reaffirmed support for our undocumented community members, and that they are more than happy to support us however needed when concerning those issues. We do not have any meeting planned out yet for the Giltrack Farm. Everyone's trying to get their bearings straight right now with the new year, especially after change in administration and similar to what city staff are dealing with in terms of funding that comes from supposed to be streamlined from the federal level. Just some questions around what we do and how we do it moving forward. Don't know if I'm allowed to say this, but I'll gladly say it, that I participated in a couple protests to advocate for our folks who do feel under threat. Those who identify as immigrant are as women and those in the LGBTQ community. There's a lot to fight for right now, and I do challenge all of us on council to be creative in how we do that in our own individual capacity as advocates and decision makers in this community. And I believe that wraps up the litany of things that I had going on.
Thank you. Yeah, if I could just, and maybe you know offhand, but I'm curious how the joint project between the Giltrack Farm and the AUSD is going, that was funded by sugar, sweet, and beverage tax revenue. And I don't expect you to know extemporaneously how that is, but I think it's a little more, we're past the halfway mark, so I'm just kind of curious, like, is it working? What's happening?
That's the kind of what we're hoping to glean out of this meeting, because we weren't able to meet during the last quarter. And so we're hoping we can make this happen so we can rightfully get some reports and I have something solid to bring back to council. I think that is important for us to know how money is being used.
Yeah, because I'm just thinking of the next study session coming up in a few months.
All right, with that said, do we have any public comment? Moving on to item number 13, future agenda item. Do any council members want to propose future agenda item? All right. Item 14, announcement of city meeting events that are upcoming can be found on the Albany City website. As well, just a reminder, we do have an upcoming holiday, President's Day, February 17th. Our city offices will be closed. That said, as I state every evening, DLC Mommy, and meeting adjourned.